Hi, and welcome to Round the Table. I'm Ben John from Christian Concern and the Wilberforce Academy. It's great to be back for another week of our weekly talk show, Round the Table. Please do put in the comments where you're from. It's always great seeing where our listeners and viewers are tuning in from. So please put in the comments. It's always great to see you. And as always, please be sending us your questions and engaging with the discussion. It's great to see some of you here. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Carol. Great to see you with us. A Christian mayoral candidate for a London borough has launched legal action after being sacked by her employer for expressing Christian beliefs on marriage as part of an election manifesto. Maureen Martin from Lewisham, London, is now being supported by the Christian Legal Centre. She was dismissed by her housing association employer for L&Q for gross misconduct following 3 complaints. The case is believed to be the first of its kind to see a political candidate sacked by their employer for their Christian beliefs. Shocking, but delighted to have Maureen with us today to share about her story, and communications manager for Christian Concern, Paul Huxley. Hi, Maureen. Hi, Paul. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, you're welcome. Thanks, Ben. And then hi, Paul.
Hi, Maureen. Hi, Ben.
Hi to both of you. Maureen, it would be great to just hear a little bit about your background and your work, and particularly how you got involved in local politics.
Yes, certainly. I'm a born and bred Londoner, as you can probably hear from my accent. I spent 14 years in Canada from 1989 to 2003, and I've been back here ever since. My entry into politics, as you can imagine, I have been, before that, what you would call a cultural socialist. You know, most people from my community just end up voting Labour because it's traditional that our parents did, etc., etc. But actually, as a community, we're actually quite conservative. And we actually, adhere to quite Christian principles. We might not be Christian, but we do have very conservative values, but vote Labour. It's a bit of a contradiction. Anyway, so I grew up really, that's the way I was. So after my return to from Canada, I sort of realised that the political parties that are currently, and even back then in 2003, on offer did not really suit my now Christian values, because I was saved at that time. And I just found I can't vote for these people anymore because they believe in, same-sex marriage. It wasn't actually a law at the time, but the LGBTQ agenda, abortion, and I'm obviously pro-life, and I'm for marriage and family, etc., etc. So I just found I couldn't vote for these people anymore. So at around that time, well, actually 2008, 2009, when Barack Obama was on the scene, everyone was really excited about him. But I, being a very practical person, I thought, well, what does he stand for? What does he believe in? It's all very well getting excited about him because he's black. What does he actually believe in? So I went and checked out the Democratic Party and found out, well, I can't really sign on to any of that. So I decided I wouldn't vote for him. If I could vote, that is, I can't, but, if I could vote, I wouldn't. Of course, I wasn't very popular amongst my community. I was a bit of a lone ranger, in fact. But that just tells you exactly where we were at the time. So someone introduced me to the Christian People's Alliance back in about 2008, 2009, maybe 10. And I said, great, I signed up as a member, but I did not become politically active. I was just a paid up member. Anyway, come 2015 now, there's a general election. Who do I vote for? There's nobody on the ballot. I was searching for the Christian People's Alliance, but there was just nobody on the ballot. I was like, where's the candidate for my area? So I checked out their website, hoping to find who is the, candidate for my borough, or my constituency, I should say. And there was just nobody. So I clicked the little button that said, I want to help. Within about 24 hours, I had the leader of the Christian People's Alliance, Sid Caldwell, calling me, asking me if I wanted to stand in my area to be the candidate for that year. I almost dropped the phone. In fact, I almost fell off my chair. I said, do what? What? It was a little bit, it's a bit too much for me at the time. But I found myself saying yes. I don't know where that came from. It must be the Holy Ghost. I found myself saying yes, and I haven't looked back since. So that was my entry into politics. And for one of the main reasons I really decided I wanted to do this, because there's such a low participatory rate in my community in politics, that I thought this is my opportunity to get involved and encourage my fellow Christians and other people in my community to also get involved, because if we don't get involved, we don't have a voice. So that's pretty much the essence of my story, how I got involved in the CPA and in politics.
Wonderful.
I remember back in 2010, the general election at that time, I was new at Christian Concern, and I was sent off to help video the leader at the time of Christian People's Alliance, and we did a little video with him and with some other people. And I thought it was interesting that you've got this explicitly Christian party there, and willing to stand up for these things. Do you want to just tell us a bit more about Christian People's Alliance and what they believe in a broader sense?
Yeah, certainly. They were founded in like 1999. I think their first leader was Alan Craig, who was quite a well-renowned politician, I think, in Newham. And at the time, the early days of the CPA, they focused their efforts mainly in Newham because we have some councillors there, etc., etc. So the focus is really in Newham. So we didn't really kind of have a really broad base. But since Sid has taken over, he's really started to focus on broadening our focus and, obviously providing a manifesto that suits everybody. And quite frankly, the things we believe in are things that are really fundamental to the Christian foundations of this nation. We believe in life from conception to natural death. We are committed to protecting life. We believe in compassion. We want to help the poor. We have a sensible program to help homelessness. It's all in our manifesto. We believe in fiscal responsibility in government. We can see how governments have wasted money, particularly on the local level. It's terrible, the wastage of our hard-earned tax money. We believe in supporting persecuted Christians around the world. We can see that Christian persecution is on the rise all over the world. So we believe governments such as the UK can do something about that, and they're not really doing it. So these are some of our focuses. And also our manifesto is very complete. It covers all aspects of our social life, our healthcare. It covers social care, the environment, taxation, defence, everything you name it covers. We're very practical. And what's nice about the CPA is that because we are a Christian party, our policies are based upon the Bible. And we are committed to no compromise on that stance. For instance, when we are in government, praise the Lord, we will repeal the 1967 Abortion Act immediately, or as soon as possible. Anyway, that will be repealed as soon as possible.
And
just to go ahead, sorry. No, go ahead.
That's the kind of thing I can imagine maybe Christians would say, impossible, it's never going to happen. But that's what they said about overturning Roe v. Wade.
Absolutely. And we know what happened recently. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Maureen, for what you're doing. And so one of the other policies, and you kind of alluded to it there as well, that's the CPA is passionate about, is the family as foundational for society, and particularly
absolutely.
and upbringing for children. And so maybe just tell us, so recently you were standing for, my understanding was the local mayoral election in Lewisham.
Yes.
And so tell us a bit about what happened when you stood for that.
Well, I think it's quite a history at the moment, but I hadn't actually stood for mayor before. This is the first time I stood for mayor. I've stood in by-elections, general elections, local elections, like for councillor, etc., etc. But this is the first time I've actually been a mayoral candidate. And of course, the difference is your information goes to the entire borough and to all the registered voters in Lewisham, about over 200,000. So this year I decided to stand for mayor because it's not free. There's no such thing as a free lunch, my friend. So of course I have to pay the requisite funds. Well, what you do pay for is a leaflet that goes out. Well, it actually goes out in the booklet, the mail booklet. You get an A5, two-side A5 size piece of paper to put your campaign promises on, your manifesto promises. One of those manifesto promises was that I will cut through the political correctness state the truth that marriage, natural marriage between a man and a woman, is a foundational building block for a successful society, and that is the safest place to rear children. Now, this was taken directly.
We have an
Yeah,
image of that, I think, if we want to just show that there.
absolutely, yeah, that's it.
Right
Yeah,
in the middle. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It's point number 3. It wasn't even point number 1. It was point number 3.
Yeah.
This was lifted straight from my manifesto. I didn't make it up. I didn't go off piece and start doing something, that the CPA did not approve. This is taken straight from my manifesto. If anyone wanted to get more information about that, they can go to our manifesto and see that put the meat on that statement. Anyway, so it went out to various households. Obviously, there are some people in Lewisham did not like that. Of course, it's their prerogative to disagree with me. That's the whole idea behind free speech, yes? Absolutely. It's their prerogative to disagree with me. However, they went a step further. Someone connected to them who lived in another borough actually complained about me to my then employer, L&Q. L&Q received 3 complaints, 2 from residents and 1 from a colleague, funnily enough. I don't know who that person was. And complaining about that particular statement. And L&Q then decided to put me through a disciplinary process, accusing me of being homophobic, discriminatory towards LGBTQ community, and breaching their social media policy. So this is what happened, and they put me through a disciplinary process. I appealed, of course. They decided to dismiss me, even after my appeal. And so now we are obviously going to an employment tribunal to get justice for my case.
Yeah. So we're just going to we'll spell it out there. What happened? You stood for the Christian People's Alliance.
Absolutely.
You had a manifesto which included about the creational family, man and woman, parents is the best space for raising children. And for that, you were sacked by your employer.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's almost shocking. We'll come back to that. Just as a slight aside, great with all the comments and questions that are coming in. And yeah, please do keep putting your comments, keep putting your questions, and a lot of comments supporting you, Maureen, Robert A. Shane. Loads of people support you. The silent majority is on your side. I do want to challenge the majority there, though. We can't be silent forever.
Amen.
Jennifer Smith, thank you for this comment. The wording of pro-marriage is a little confusing. Most of us who are LGBT, pro-LGBT, are also pro-marriage, just for same-sex couples too. Perhaps the more accurate label would be anti-marriage. Paul, well, how would you respond to Jennifer?
Well, obviously, I can't speak for Maureen exactly her understanding of this, but I understand marriage to be something that is created by God, and it's in the creational order. So right at the beginning of the Bible, you have God marrying Adam and Eve and setting up that pattern. He designed us, male and female, in this way. And what we believe is that marriage, therefore, is something that is part of creation and unavoidably man and woman together. And it just isn't marriage if it's a man and a man or a woman and a woman. It's something different. You don't have the same complementarity of the sexes. You don't have any possibility for offspring. And so marriage is something that you can't just redefine in that kind of way. So even though in 2013 we passed same-sex marriage in this country, I wouldn't say that marriage actually exists if you've got the same-sex couple. You've got something different to it there. And so if you're pro-marriage, I believe that means you're pro a man and a woman joining together, and not just on a temporary basis, and not with many women or many men. This is one man, one woman, and with the intention of staying together as long as you both live, which just can't happen with 2 men or 2 women. Some Christians think that it's worth recognizing some other kind of partnership. I don't agree with that either. But the important thing really is that marriage is a particular thing that's created by God and based on creational patterns.
Certainly. Well, thank you for that, Paul, and thank you for the question, Jennifer. And just to continue your, if you enjoy the rest of the program. But yes, certainly. So you were sacked, Maureen, from your role. It'd be great just to hear a little bit about those kinds of conversations that you had leading up to that. So you had those disciplinary hearings, yes, and you said that some people had been complaining, including from outside the borough. Could you just tell us a little bit about that process and how you were feeling during that time?
Right. I mean, the call came from HR quite unexpectedly, because they will give you that first call, don't they, to tell you that something's not quite right or something's happened. So the call came through the 20th of April, and they called me and told me that there was a problem. Complaints have come in, saying that I put something on Twitter, which actually wasn't me that put it on Twitter, but that's besides the point right now. And then they called me about half an hour later and proceeded to put me through what I can only call a Soviet-style interrogation. You know, did you do this? Did you do that? Is this yours? Did you, you know, endorse this leaflet? Of course I endorsed the leaflet. It's my leaflet. So, and they kind of started questioning me about my tweets. I explained every single one of them, explaining why they were not discriminatory. But then they called me back later. The next day, I think it was, to tell me what they were going to do. And the next day they contacted me again saying they were going to suspend. No, they said, no, I think they said call me back the same day, saying they're going to suspend me pending an investigation with pay. Then they contacted me again the next day with details of what they were going to start the investigation, and they would then set up a date for the disciplinary. I think that was the idea of it. Yeah, so they conducted, I should say, their investigation, which is a bit of a sham, to be fair. I mean, I don't know who they investigated. They didn't talk to any of my work colleagues. I don't know what they were investigating, really. Anyway, so they did conduct their investigation, and they had the disciplinary, which again was just a repeat of the same stuff that they did in the initial contacts, which is basically just going through the tweets, explaining why they thought it was discriminatory, why I was making my case it was not, and making the point that I'm protected under the Equality Act because my views are based on my Christian beliefs, my religion. They completely ignored all of that. In fact, they kept trying to divert their responsibility to the Equality Act by saying that my views were not necessarily not based upon my religion, but they said it's not about your religion, it's about what you said and possible discrimination. But I again put that, well, it is about my religion because my views are based upon my religion. Everything I said is based upon my faith. So they completely obfuscated that and just put it to one side, completely ignored my Articles 10 and 9 rights under the Human Rights Act, completely ignored it. I spelled it out quite clearly what the law says under Article 9 and Article 10, right to religious freedom, right to freedom of expression. They completely ignored all that and just stuck to their internal inclusion, diversity, and social media policies, which I did point out are subject to the human rights laws.
Yeah.
So, and they completely ignored all that, and they dismissed me anyway, which was not a major surprise, because the way I see, or I've heard about what happens in these cases is that they make the decision ahead of time what they're going to do before they even bring you through the process. So I think they'd already made the decision.
But at what point did you connect with Christian Concern and the Christian Legal Centre?
I believe Sid Cordell, our leader, he forwarded the case to them because he has quite a big experience with Christian Concern. Yeah. So he actually forwarded the case for me, and thankfully, and I thank God, the Christian Legal Centre were very interested in the case because it's one of a kind. It's the first time a political candidate has ever been sacked by their employer for expressing views said on a political campaign. Never happened before. It's quite unique.
You know, certainly, and it's shocking. And I mean, we're increasingly seeing shocking normalized,
absolutely,
in the culture and with some of the cases. Paul,
that's right. So yeah, good Christian Concern, Christian Legal Centre. You know, this is it's new in one sense, the political sort of angle of it, but you know, we're probably most of our cases are to do with Christians finding themselves in trouble in the workplace because of their Christian beliefs or how they've manifested them. Now, some of those are cases where someone has manifested their faith in the workplace. So they may have said something Christian at work, or they may not. In the case of David Makareth, who's recently had his case heard, it's where someone doesn't want to say something, doesn't want to say trans pronouns in the workplace. So we've had lots of cases along the time related to that. But what we're seeing a lot more of in the last probably 5 years or so are these cases where someone is doing something outside the workplace, and the employer takes objection to that, and manages to dismiss them because of that. We've had probably the two most similar ones are that of Felix Ngole and Shea Muba. So Felix, where he was a social work student, and he got kicked off his course and told he was not fit to practice because of supporting a pro-marriage position. There was a registrar in America who didn't want to register same-sex marriages. Felix posted a comment on Facebook about that. So outside of his normal, outside of his course, in that case, it wasn't employment. And he gets kicked off the course, and therefore the possibility of him becoming a social worker was ended. Except it wasn't, because we challenged it, and he's been able to go back to his course. And then there's Shea Muba, who was an actress who was dropped by her agency and these sorts of things after, again, a pro real marriage tweet, and people digging that up. And actually, I think it was a Facebook post. People digging that up and putting pressure on again. But there are also two other cases recently: Christy Higgs and Keith Waters. Again, we've got Facebook comments, tweets, these sorts of things where people have piled on. And in Keith Waters' case, which is actually, I think, really similar to yours, Maureen. He's
yes.
a part-time pastor. You're a part-time politician in a sense, who's posted something publicly. And in their other employment has got into trouble and been fired. He's won his case, which is fantastic, and I very much hope and believe that yours is going to be won in the same way, because of all the things you've said.
Yes, indeed, yes.
No, thank you for that, Paul. We're seeing it more and more, and yeah, as with your case in particular with Shea. So yes, there's similarities there in Keith, but also this trend of sort of searching through Twitter to find and get all the tweets and question you, as we saw with Shea and as we've seen with you, and the consequences that's been having. Maureen, do you think this would have happened had you posted? I mean, I know the answer, so I can't even ask the question.
Yeah.
Do you think this would have happened if you'd posted pro gay marriage? If your manifesto was pro gay marriage, or you tweeted about pro LGBT things? Absolutely
not. I did pose that question to them in the disciplinary, I think, and I got no answer, not surprisingly. However, it was pointed out, in fact, in the Keith Waters case, that the Keith Waters defense, who was a CLC, of course, did point out that the organisation could have said, even though we respect her right to have these views, they're not the views we share as an organisation, but we take inclusion and diversity seriously, and just close it off right there. The judge did make a point of saying this was a viable option for the organisation, a viable path for them to take to close the complaint down and keep everybody happy, really. Maybe not the complainant so much, but it would have gone a much further in maintaining their reputation that they're so keen to protect, than just going all out on the left liberal ideology and punishing me. Because it will say to those people complaining, these people really do take inclusion seriously, and next time this happens, I probably need to think twice before just going in and thinking they're just going to do what I want them to do. Unfortunately, what L&Q's done now, they've opened themselves up. So anyone now who complains, against a Christian viewpoint, anything that goes against LGBTQ, they have now put themselves in a position where they almost like condemn themselves to supporting whatever the complaint is and punishing those people that go against the agenda. So they've done themselves a great disservice.
If you put a different comparison in place, imagine someone who's not Christian had tweeted, maybe reacting to Roe v. Wade or something like this. Oh, I hate the fact that Christians are doing this, or that, or I don't believe in Christianity. I think it's bad for country, our country, or this sort of thing. I think that's the sort of comparison, the closest comparison to what you've done. If there are 3 people who complained to L&Q about a tweet like that, do we really think that would have been leading to it? Because that's more anti-Christian than anything you said.
Exactly.
And I mean, you were called horrible things. Was it bigoted moron?
Yes, indeed.
Other things. You know, you had that kind of Twitter abuse and various things. How did all of that kind of make you feel?
To be fair, I didn't actually read the Twitter trolling too much because some of it's quite foul language. So I don't really like to look at that. However, they did actually put some of it in the disciplinary documents, funny enough, foul language and all. They actually put some, yes, indeed. They put some of it in the actual disciplinary documentation.
Not to be like, this must be hard for you, let us support you.
No, not at all. They didn't edit anything out, just put it right in there. So it's quite interesting because, you know, they showed complete disregard for, you know, my feelings. They were so focused on the feelings of other people. My feelings were not even considered in the matter at all. So I mean, in terms of how I felt, I just felt L&Q were, you know, showing their true colours, basically.
Yeah.
And just dismissing me.
Pardon me. Well, we got some comments coming in. Sandra Saprasinik, all Christians need to speak up for the freedom God gave us in our Lord Jesus Christ. Please do get your keep putting in your comments and questions. One question here from John Sharp. Was this coming from HR or the operational managers? Do you think, or is it all just the whole organisation together?
I think it came from the top.
Okay.
I think it came from Fiona Fletcher herself because the original complaints were sent to her.
And before this, you had people who would identify as LGBT as colleagues, things like that, and you'd never had particular complaints made against you. You'd worked very well with people. You'd done your job diligently.
Absolutely.
What has been the response from colleagues since this has kind of blown up a bit?
Well, my response, my interaction with colleagues has been sort of limited because once you're suspended, they sort of say you can't really contact anyone and you're cut off from your former colleagues. But the people I, you know, have been in contact with have been quite supportive. And unfortunately for me, the information about the case got out, I don't know how, into L&Q quite quickly. In fact, within a week, in fact, and completely destroyed my reputation. I had an excellent reputation. And before that, an exemplary record. I was well liked within the organisation, an excellent manager, well liked by my team members, or those I led, you know, as being a team leader or manager. And they completely destroyed my reputation.
Yeah.
Completely. So, you know, that I didn't really kind of focus on that because I think this is a bigger issue than just my reputation within an organisation. However, it's an aspect of how they have, you know, it's part of the persecution, as it were, to not only take away my livelihood, but also destroy my reputation within the organisation and make it difficult for me to get another job within that sector.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's all around. I think they really tried to punish me for just going against the liberal agenda, which they are completely sold up to.
So you said there about, in a sense, this is bigger than yourself and your own story. Why are you taking this stand?
Well, it's not about just me, is it? It's about Christian values, number one. We must have the right to speak and be free to exercise our religion, our freedom of expression. These are things that have been enshrined in the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta is over 800 years old. In fact, all of the, not liberal, but freedoms that we have throughout the West, you can find a lot of them come from the Magna Carta. This is a document started in this country. So we have a great history of freedoms in a democratic society.
And for those interested in the Magna Carta, Wilberforce Publications has published a book on the Magna Carta. So do keep an eye out on that, a collection of essays on its influence and significance for us, particularly, as you said, in the West. Sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Your plugs in there, Ben.
Yes, indeed, good plugging. Yeah, but for me, it's about standing up for those people who feel that they can't, they feel intimidated, they have to have a job. I understand all of that. But for me, I'm in a position where I can stand up. It's an opportunity for me to speak out for those people being intimidated into silence, to stand up on their behalf and say, listen, we have the right to speak. We have the right to express our religion. We have the right to disagree with anything we want to disagree with. And people have the right to disagree with us. That's the way free speech works. So for you to now try and silence me because I'm just not, signed up endorsing your agenda, that is completely wrong.
Did you feel, so obviously lots of pressure from the world and from work to backtrack and apologize and things like that. Have you had much support from other Christians?
Oh yes, definitely, yes. Even in when I was campaigning, quite a few people contacted me just on the back of my statement I made on my election communication, saying thank you for speaking out, thank you for standing. They said our church should be praying for you, we'll vote for you. I had quite a few people reach out to me. I had a few on the other side too, complaining, but that's what it's all about. That's fine, no problem. But I did have people reach out to me and say we're standing with you, thank you for speaking out. So it's very heartwarming, very encouraging to get that communication, definitely.
Oh, wonderful. I think oftentimes for many, when there's a real sense of isolation and loneliness when we're being marginalized for our faith or what we believe is unpopular. So I think it's really important that Christians and churches are speaking and engaging on these issues and supporting each other as we seek to be faithful where God's placed us. Paul.
That's part of the problem, isn't it? Because, back in 2013, we had same-sex marriage going through Parliament, and, there was a certain amount that the church was saying some things about that. We had some rallies outside Parliament. Some people turned up to that. There was some noise about that. Then it gets passed and it comes into reality in 2014. And how much has the church or anyone campaigned on that issue since? How much has anyone stood up for real marriage since then? I mean, you've got the Coalition for Marriage, you've got groups like Christian Concern who can have sometimes say things, but we've moved on to other things. We've not really carried on expressing that this is a mistake. We need to go back from this. We need to overturn this. And the fact that has stopped saying anything about this, and they've gone, okay, well, we have same-sex marriage. We have to admit that we're in a post-Christian society, and these things are going to happen. That's been the tone of it. And because we've not talked about this, then it's just no longer acceptable to say it in the world. And that's why you got such a strong reaction, partly because who else is saying this? No one's saying
exactly.
So it's been pushed out of the things that are allowed to be said in the common discourse. Some people call it the Overton window. You're not allowed to say this anymore, and because the church has been so silent.
I think as well, we've reduced politics in a sense just to economic policy, and economic policy, of course, is important, and there are Christian perspectives on that. But I think oftentimes when I say about the importance of particularly social moral policies for our parties, and why these are things we need to be engaging with our politicians and our MPs about, there's generally a bit of a dismissal about that, as though that's imposing our Christian views and things like that. But actually, as you said, Christ is sovereign, God is sovereign over everything, and all things need to submit to him and his authority. And we do that. We want to see heart transformation, see people coming to know Christ for themselves. That doesn't mean that we need to be neutral in the way that we engage. And so that's why it's always so encouraging to see Christians taking a stand and Christians engaging in politics and not afraid to say that it's because of Christ that they're doing so, and it's for his.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And these issues aren't kind of completely separate, right? Yeah. Because a pro-family, pro-marriage policy will have economic impact, and it'll have good economic impacts. The studies have been done to show that. I've just seen that there's an ongoing discussion in the Facebook comments. Thanks for those, including from Jennifer again. She said that she's provided someone a link to 75 research studies. She says that come to the conclusion that children of same-sex couples are at no disadvantage. Well, I'm going to get my plug in here, because we've also at Wilberforce Publications published a book called Same-Sex Parenting Research, which is a tome. It's very technical, but it really shows that that's not the case. Jennifer, I'd really like you to go and read that, and anyone else who's concerned about it can go and check that out as well.
Yeah, and I can just add there, Paul, there's many other studies that are out there that show that it's not just about same-sex couples that are not as ideal for children. It's all other models that just are not as ideal. Natural parents are the best environment to rear children. Step parents are not as ideal. You know, adoptive families are not as ideal. They're not bad, but the ideal place is natural parents. There are many studies out there to actually prove that point, and some of them actually I provided in my my appeal material in my disciplinary case. So there's much out there to prove the case and prove the point that natural parents, one man, one woman, married to each other, bring up children, is the ideal model. And it's the foundation which all society is built upon. It's the foundation. Without that, we don't have a society. End of story. And that's the bare knuckles of it.
No, absolutely, certainly. We see it foundationally in creation, go forth, be fruitful and multiply. We see it's the context for education and discipleship, raise up a child in the way he should go when he's old.
Absolutely.
Apart from it. And yeah, throughout scripture, that's the kind of theme and narrative, is that great marriage between Christ and his bride, the church. Paul, what do you think Christians can be doing now, as we've been saying about on these different issues? And we saw that earlier. And Robert, I wasn't trying to be cynical about the silent majority, but you know, the reality is we need more and more Christians to speak. You know, Maureen, we want to be standing with you. Paul, what do you think Christians can and should be doing?
Well, I think that ultimately Christians who speak for the truth are going to be vindicated. So all those who are clear about what the Bible says and what God says, and therefore what God has actually created, the way the universe really works, which is a pro-marriage and pro-family kind of view of reality, the pattern for how we should live. Those who speak up for it are going to be vindicated in the long run. You know, it might take a long time, but whether it's an issue like abortion, whether it's an issue like family, those who are clear about these things will be vindicated. And I think you see this probably on a shorter timeline with the gender issues. If you look at what's happening with transgenderism and the explosion of the number of particularly young people who have gone onto things like cross-sex hormones and started identifying as trans, these sorts of things, and then the number of people who've now found themselves dissatisfied with that and who are detransitioning and saying, why did anyone let me do this? It's going to be that the people who spoke up against those things who are going to be vindicated. So an approach from Christians or the church which goes, oh, we want to be soft and really gentle on all of these issues and never, we don't want to alienate someone who's identifying as trans or this kind of thing. Well, yeah, we don't want to just push them away needlessly by any means. But ultimately, we'll be vindicated if we tell the truth, if we speak up for how God's really made the world. And I think that Christians and church leaders in particular have a job to do in being clear on that, because that is the true way to be compassionate on these things.
Absolutely.
Just seeing some comments here, particularly just going to respond to Mark Hutchinson. I don't think anyone's judging adoptive parents. I think we're all pro-adoption, but
of course,
we all know that the reason why adoption is sometimes necessary is because of brokenness.
Or single parents, for example, right? For example, a single mother whose husband has abandoned her and gone off, right? That's a terrible situation. And I don't think many single mothers in that situation think, oh, this is the perfect situation for me or for my family. Most are quite critical of what's happened to them. And they recognize that it's difficult. And we want to absolutely support in every way those people. But part of the solution has to be to try and avoid that situation in the first place and have strong marriages where people are really committed to each other.
Yeah, certainly. Maureen, what has been your comfort and strength during this time? And do you have sort of any words of encouragement to those listening and watching now?
Absolutely. My comfort and strength have been the Lord's, no doubt about it. In fact, I think the morning that I got the call, I heard in my spirit as I woke up, and God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but of course I know the story well. It comes from Genesis and Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dream. But after things transpired, I knew what God was saying. I'll give you an answer of peace. And I've had peace throughout the entire process. Regardless of how difficult it seemed on the outside, I had peace on the inside. Plus, the support of my fellow Christians, the CPA, been amazing. Of my fellow CPANs, and the Christian Legal Centre has been absolutely amazing. And really, I just can't put a value on their support. It's been just amazing. So I really thank God for them. And just knowing that God's got my back, really. You know, this is going to turn out for good. I will definitely win my case. And also for all those people out there that feel marginalised, feel like they can't speak, feel like they're hiding their real, opinions or thoughts because they're afraid of losing their jobs. Listen, I'm here to say, be bold, be brave. Okay? The worst thing they could take away from you is a job. And if you're trusting the Lord, at the end of the day, God is your source.
Amen.
Your integrity and your Christian faith is much more valuable than a job. And God will take care of you.
Wonderful words then. Yes, as you said, if God be for us, who can be against us? Who can bring any charge against God's elect? It is God, Christ, who justifies. So wonderful words for us there. I'll just close for us then with these words of Jesus in John 15, which are things we just sometimes forget when we're faced with opposition and persecution. If the world, John 15, verse 18, if the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. And then in 16, verse 33, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world. They're thankful for your stand, Maureen, and to be able to stand alongside you. And for those who've been watching and tuning in, please do be praying for Maureen and praying for the case. You can sign up to Christian Concern. You'll be getting updates about Maureen's case as it goes forward, and God willing, with favor and success and victory. So you can sign up at christianconcern.com/sign up, and you can /hello, and you can
or sign up, but hello is good too.
Yeah, sign up or hello, both work. And also want to give an opportunity, if you want to sign a petition that has just been launched in support of Maureen, supporting people's rights to express their political views and not be sacked for it based on their religious beliefs. You can do that in the link that has just been published into the comments. So please do consider putting your name to that and sharing it in your churches and your networks. And if you found this an inspiring and encouraging story, of course, shocking as well, please do consider sharing this video of this discussion that we've just had and Maureen's story and testimony. I've certainly been encouraged and inspired, Maureen, by your faithfulness. So keep going and keep running the race, and God will bless that. So thank you so much, Maureen. Thank you so much, Paul. It's been a joy to have you. And thank you so much, all you who have been tuning in and engaging, writing your comments and questions. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you next week on Round the Table.